what we get with this one. Do we got big boy sounds? We got little boy sounds. What kind of boy sounds do we have? Marshall, back to you on that one for how many boy sounds you had.
What is this?
Scream for Snickers ice cream.
Oh. Snickers.
Yeah.
This is the show that we're doing, and it's really, really good. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
It's a show. Welcome back, everybody.
And here we are, back in the show. It's been a week or more.
It has not been any
nothing
more than a week.
Changed.
We are on schedule, and nothing has happened.
It is the 15th
the announced date of this podcast
of July.
Yes, that's that's today, and that's what we're recording. And this is when you're hearing that, right?
Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute! It's July 25th. What? Where do we go? You guys said you were gonna. We followed your Instagram, and you said you were gonna post on the 14th, but apparently not. What happened? Did you die? Are you the worst? I don't know. I don't know what could have possibly happened that would have delayed this show, because the show must always go on no matter what. What even could stop this show, Marshall?
Saddam Hussein, if he was here in this room, he could probably do it.
I would agree with that.
Because he has guns and people with guns.
Yeah, and I also don't know if I could fight him one-on-one.
He's got big muscles. I don't know if I could point out a picture of Saddam Hussein.
And neither could I. Also, apologies in advance for if there's like a humming on this episode. There's an air conditioner outside of our room, and we don't have a lot of money to afford a
that we both live in. This is our bedroom.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Just give us money so that we can get a studio. Yeah. That's really, I mean, if you want it to sound better, then fix our problem. Stop complaining about it.
A silent and perfect air conditioner for the garage.
Basically, if the audio is bad, it's your fault and not our fault, right?
Yeah.
I think this is how you develop a fan base, right? I was doing some research. Just insult the, whoa. Oh, listen to these sounds, man. I'm just... Oh, yeah. Oh. Just insult your fan base as much as possible. That was their fault right there.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to Ben and Marshall Do a Podcast, the official podcast of the Great Scub Do. We talk about movies and other things sometimes, but mostly movies. Yeah. And today, we talk about a movie.
Correct. We've talked about multiple movies before.
That's true. We talked about Chinatown and...
Yeah. We also talked about movies with bad endings.
Chinatown and...
Good movies with bad endings.
Chinatown and... I thought I was on my bookshelf, but I can't see it. Chinatown and...
I mean, I'm going to let you... I got it, but...
Oh, my gosh. Maltese Falcon.
There we go.
Okay. Yes. Classic episodes of Ben and Marshall Do a Podcast.
10 points if you knew it before he did.
Ah, oh, jeez. You ever see the meme when you know what the podcaster is trying to think of?
Yeah. I hate when that happens.
It's every single time. But we are going to talk about multiple movies again this time, and it's an interesting concept. But we'll get there. First of all, first things first.
What's the first thing that's first?
We got news.
Oh boy, what's the big news?
Well, there is actually... I feel like there was a good amount of news that happened last week whenever the podcast would have gone out, and I can't find that anymore because it's a new news cycle. It's been 2 weeks.
Fun.
So... all of those things have already happened. Go listen to something like The Weekly Planet. And
get out of here.
If you listen to their last week's episode, and then you'll hear all that news. But I do have 2 pieces of news. Are you ready?
Ready as ever.
Literally today. This is fresh news.
Hot off the press. Breaking.
It's not good news.
Presses.
Regis Philbin, the famous TV show host, interviewer, and so on, has died. He was in his mid-80s, I think.
Wow.
And it's kind of wild. Like, he's one of those, like, he's just kind of a staple of, like, American television, of Western television.
Right.
That, like, you just, like, you see, that's Regis, you know, and he's the guy. It's like probably the way that people felt when Regis. Johnny Carson died. Like, he's such, like, a giant of that. So it, like, I mean, I can't say that I always watched all of his shows or anything, or really ever have, but it's just like,
No, yeah, I've definitely watched shows that he has been a part of.
Yeah, of course. But like, I'm not watching Regis in the morning, you know?
Right. No, definitely not. Yeah. No, I mean, I thought it. You know, I would have given it a like if I saw it in a tweet form. You know, It's like R.I.P. I think that's where I'm at.
Shared it on Facebook. I can't remember. Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
I saw it on Discord. Good old Drewski.
Really? Maybe that's where I saw it.
Shout out Drewski. He needs to play Warzone with us again.
I need to play Warzone.
Drew hasn't played Warzone with us in a long time, and I'm not okay with that.
I missed
So, Drew, I'm going to send you this clip later.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make you listen to the podcast.
The whole thing. From episode 1.
So that you can hear this, so you play Warzone with us again.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on.
Or you can listen to this episode in reverse until you get to here.
Right. 2 options.
And then go forward again.
Count.
But yeah, Regis Philbin, you know.
Next piece of news.
Interesting, sad news. And I do have one other piece of news, and that's basically that all of these things that were like, we're going to go back in theaters in August, and we're going to go back in theaters in November. It's like everything is now just indefinitely delayed or moved to 2021. Tenet being the number one thing that kept getting moved and was like, it's going to save cinemas when it comes back to theaters, and now it's indefinitely delayed.
When you literally cancel an entire year.
Yeah. It's, you know, a sad day.
Culture. This is what cancel culture. I can't talk. This is why I need to be on Twitter, because I can type, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cancel culture. You know, it's gone too far. The joke doesn't work anymore. I lost my momentum.
Yeah.
So now we're here.
It would have been so funny.
It would have been like maybe a solid like 4 out of 10 joke.
Yeah.
But now that we've lost any momentum, it's definitely going to be like a 1 out of 10 joke.
That's okay.
Caleb will laugh. So
Caleb will laugh. Caleb will laugh. Hey, Caleb. I was talking to him.
His middle and last name, Caleb will laugh.
Yeah. I was talking to him the other day about how, like, we don't intentionally, like, try to bring Caleb up. He just, like, somehow comes up every single episode.
Has he? I don't even... Yeah, because I don't do it on purpose at all.
Yeah, it's just, like, we suddenly think, oh, yeah, there he is.
Because I think it's, like, anytime we think of, like, a fan... He's the only person who I know is even a fan or like cares about the show.
This guy is listening
like I know
to it.
this is the one person that I know will be there.
Yeah,
Caleb, we always know that
Caleb will be there for us.
Yes, we will have at least one stream on this episode.
What a guy!
And if that's all we get, if we can entertain our Calebs and other Dumbo Bryans out there,
Dumbo Bryans
and the Dumbo Bryan Nation,
yeah.
Damn, I love that. I love that so much. Wow. I love how it's kind of catching on. See, that's my joke. I got one good joke.
I heard somebody at the Whole Foods say it.
Really?
In the line behind me. Yeah.
No way.
It's like, you're a real Dumbo, Brian. That's a lie. That didn't happen.
I was gonna say, there's no way you've been at Whole Foods.
I am not. I was at Super Saver though, and I got milk.
Yeah, that's not Whole Foods.
It was an entire food.
Oh, nice. Good
the whole
job.
Thing.
Yeah, I just want to get recognized. You know, so one of us, somebody out there who's listening to this podcast, recognize me somewhere, and then I'll feel famous, and then this podcast will officially get a sponsor.
Yeah,
that's not Snickers.
Well, I guess that's the news, isn't it? I was going to say I have one more piece of news, but I don't.
I feel like there's some news that we could talk about. Maybe we take a special segment, because I think this could just be news. You know, I mean, why did we not have a podcast? What happened?
Well, that's apartment news.
Oh, is that? I mean, I okay.
Yeah.
Well, should we start apartment news then?
I guess so.
Oh, I mean, it is that segment, right?
Yeah.
Apartment news, your number one source for news about Ben and Marshall's apartment. And now your host, live on Linux, Benjamin Earl Weber.
Wow.
The end.
Fiverr. Yeah, dude, that's... Wow. I can't wait for him to say the end.
Thank you, John Johnson.
Yeah, good, because... okay, so now make sure and pause for when he says the end. Okay. Good. Wow, that was really cool when he said the end.
Okay, bye. See you later,
Fiverr man.
You can pick up your check on the way out. Okay. We pay him $5 every other week to do that.
Give him a good old Fiverr. Mm-hmm. I actually we give it to him in pounds. And he has to do the conversion. It's a little bit more than $5. So, you know.
How many ounces is that?
25.
Oh, nice. Well, we have 2 pieces of apartment news.
Okay.
And one is kind of tied to the other. But the reason that we didn't have a podcast the last week or the week before that, I don't know. I think the 14th was when it was supposed to go out.
I believe so.
Was on July 5th of 2020.
You thought this year couldn't get worse?
I know. Every month there's a different disaster. We had the Murder Hornet episode, and the next episode was I was on my longboard. Well, I was at the Telegraph Mill, and I was leaving the Telegraph Mill. And I thought, I'm going to go longboarding because it's one of the few things that I enjoy these days. Right. I'm able to go out and enjoy because there's not a lot of things that you can do these days. Cause
I've also been longboarding a lot more. It's a great pastime.
It's a great time. I love it.
I highly suggest doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe you would too.
So
I don't
do
know.
I.
You know?
But I go get my longboard because it's like always in my car.
And a little bit of context. You just got a new longboard.
I did.
Brand new, Sector 9.
Yeah.
You know, new bearings, new trucks, and nothing tightened up.
Yeah.
Going,
brand new bamboo, fresh grown.
Oh, fresh grown bamboo.
And I like the first hill that I get to, I start to go down this thing and get like a million times way too much speed and just fly off the longboard and like slam my wrist into the ground, and I scraped my face up a bit. My computer is turned off for some reason. Oh, the mouse is off.
That's what happens when you fall off your skateboard. Your computer automatically goes into sleep mode.
Yeah, just like I did. Just kidding, I didn't pass out or anything. But I was like on the ground, and my leg was bleeding a little bit, and my face was bleeding a little bit. I could taste it in my mouth because it was like, it got scraped up right here. I'm pointing to my face.
Thankfully, it was fresh bamboo.
It was fresh bamboo. But I was like yelling for help and screaming for help, and no one's around. I did actually see like a father and son, and they just like kept walking. It's like, this really inspires my faith in humanity as I'm like desperately screaming for help as I'm in horrible pain right now. And then I look down at my wrist, and it's like the ball of my wrist. Everything is still self-contained, but the ball of my wrist was like around, like twisted around where it was not supposed to be. So that's when I start like screaming and cursing for help. And I was like, oh, jeez. And it was not good.
Did you pop her back in or what?
No, it was not dislocated,
right?
But when I called the ambulance, and I saw a guy come by a few minutes later, and he grabbed my board and my glasses for me. My glasses, inexplicably, completely untouched, no scratches or anything at all.
That's a positive.
Yeah, well, they're $20 blue light blockers, but whatever.
Well, okay, I mean,
but like in the ambulance, the paramedics finally show up, and like I'm immediately pumped full of adrenaline. I just stand up and I'm like, hey, dude. I just fell and hurt my arm. I called the ambulance. I'm fine right now, but can you pick that up? Because I don't really have a spare hand because I'm talking to the dispatcher on my phone. And so I've got the phone in my hand, and then this hand is like twisted in a circle, and like The Exorcist, which is nuts. I'll talk about that later. Watch The Exorcist. And in the ambulance or whoever it was, apparently the official medical terminology is that I had an obvious deformity. I was like, that's really encouraging, guys. Thanks. So I broke my arm. Both of the arm bones in the forearm are broken, and I completely ripped the tendon off where it connects like the wrist to the arm. So that was a couple different surgeries. And I'm in a cast, and I was living at my parents' house for a couple weeks. So that was my apartment news, is that I was not present in the apartment for a bit there.
Can confirm he was not here.
Yeah. The other piece of apartment news is the little basket, our stuff basket, which was gifted to me by the campus operations staff. It was full of popcorn and other things, a little plaque that you like put on a shelf. You know, like the kind of live, laugh, love things, except it was like a glass thing with the bat symbol on it, and it said, nothing's impossible until someone does it, which I'm not sure how, and it's a quote attributed to Batman, the real fictional person.
I feel like that's, that might be a little bit of a dig.
I don't know how that necessarily applies.
Nothing's impossible.
Until you do. It's not impossible to break your wrist.
Almost die on a skateboard, but you did it.
Oh, I did almost die on a skateboard. If I was tilted a little bit further forward, I easily could have like cracked my head open. And it was a few minutes till that guy showed up. So, like, I 100% would have just bled out right there on Rocky Mountain Trail, which is horrifying to think about. Works,
but
bleeding
out?
Yes. If I, like, smacked my head on the concrete...
Well, you could have came by and you could have used the self-res, bro.
That's true. I could have revved myself.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know.
It's my hugest pet peeve.
Yeah, is it rev or res?
It's res, because you're resurrecting someone.
Yeah.
Or you're reviving them.
I think rev makes sense, because that's reviving, and technically in COD it's reviving, but I think...
Those are two different things, though, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because you rev your engines, and you res someone.
I think they're both correct, but, like, I prefer
one is
res.
stupid.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. But yeah, we have our stuff basket, and I took the stuff out, and all of it had a ton of red tissue paper in it, and I took all that out, and it just looks like a nice basket that says stuff. So now we put like stuff in it, like popcorn and our cookbooks.
Wow. Oh yeah, I have cookbooks now.
Yeah.
I made some lasagna. That was pretty cool.
Did you make the lasagna?
I mean, my grandma said I could say that I made the lasagna.
Okay.
I put some lasagna that was pre-made into the oven, but it was also homemade lasagna that was pre-made for me.
I was going to be mildly impressed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I could make some lasagna. I could make that. Mm-hmm. It's in the cookbook.
Oh.
What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I had a birthday. That was cool.
You did?
Uh-huh. Now I can...
I thought your birthday was like a few months ago when you got that mug.
No, that was when you got me that mug.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah. My birthday was July 24th. Don't check that. Don't look that up. Don't fact check that. And I don't even... Yeah, that's all I got to say.
True, though, isn't it?
Don't fact check that.
I think Facebook told me so.
Don't fact check that.
Okay. Not going to... Snopes will never know.
Just don't look it up. Let's talk about this movie, maybe. I don't know.
That was apartment news.
Yeah.
I feel like it's time to talk about...
he said that. This is when he says the end. Wow, that was
there
pretty cool.
There it is.
That was good.
Yay. We'll see if
Thanks, Fiverr,
we remember
man.
to put it in.
Thanks for coming back, even though we said, hey.
Hey.
Get out of here.
You don't get an extra $5.
Oh, you... Come on. Next week is not going to be this easy. All right, listen up.
That's right.
Look, I'm gonna make it. I'm taking it seriously this time.
Taking it so serious. There's gonna be such a really good audio gag.
Hold on.
It's gonna be worth it. Oh, that sounded like so a bad fart. What? That was duct tape.
Oh my god, that was an amazing sound. Somebody clipped that.
Caleb sends us clips of the show.
Oh, he does?
Yeah. He sent like...
Can you make a group chat with Caleb right now? Text him. Can you send him a video of us recording the podcast live?
That's too much work. We have to talk about YOJIMBO.
Oh, dang it. Okay. Maybe next time.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about 2 movies because we watched 2 movies. Sort of watched 1 movie. We could have actually watched 3, and I'll get to that later. But... that was very confusing.
We could have also watched 4 movies, or we could have watched 1 movie. We could have watched no movies, and we could have watched a red movie.
We could have read 2 books, a movie, and then 3 more movies, and it would have all been fairly similar.
Right. Okay, cool. So
now I'll explain.
Yes, please do.
So we watched the movies YOJIMBO, directed by Akira Kurosawa, and directed and written by Akira Kurosawa, and A Fistful of Dollars, directed by Sergio Leone, and quote unquote written by him as well. But there's a big caveat there. It is a direct remake, and a ripoff is probably a more accurate term, and we'll get to the reason why later, of YOJIMBO. It's pretty much the same. It is almost exactly the same story. And it's just YOJIMBO is a samurai movie from Japan in 1961. And Fistful of Dollars is from 1964.
Wow.
And it's a cowboy movie.
I'm a cowboy.
Kind of the first movie to really popularize spaghetti westerns. And there have been like 20,000, or not 20,000, but like 25, I think, spaghetti westerns. I did some research before this, and people quote, they're like, oh, it's the first one ever. It was the one that made it really big, but
right. There
were other bad Italian westerns before that. So here we go. Here's the story. Here's YOJIMBO, directed by Akira Kurosawa, starring Toshiro Mifune as Sanjuro, a wandering ronin. So Sanjuro wanders aimlessly, beautifully shown by him just picking up a stick and tossing it in the air and being like, well, I guess I'll follow where that pointed because I got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
I love that.
It immediately gives the movie something to or the character something to do, right off the get. You know what I mean?
Like what is his motivation? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it communicates everything with, not again yet, but no dialogue.
Yeah. So much good no dialogue. Yeah. He's wandering aimlessly and comes upon a family argument. The son doesn't want to be a farmer. He wants to go and join up with a gang and be a gambler and whatever. And the father is like,
I want to be a gambler.
Yeah. The father's like, don't do that. That's a stupid idea. And he goes and does that.
Son, I don't love you.
Sure. So Sanjuro kind of follows the kid to some degree.
I'm giving like the Cliff Notes version of what you're saying.
Gotcha.
So like the cliff notes of the cliff notes, you know?
I have like so many more notes than usual though. So let's just like push way through this and then we can do cliff notes
dang it. All right.
after the podcast.
I was just trying to keep it entertaining for, our listeners at home.
Oh, you're right.
I was adding a little zest and spice to our podcast.
Okay, I'll try to make it entertaining. Sanjuro,
that was what I was doing.
Oh, okay. So Sanjuro enters the town that this kid was going to, and bystanders are watching from windows, seemingly afraid to go out. And as he's entering the town, a dog with a human hand in his mouth walks by, signifying, oh, this is a dangerous place, a lawless place. Something is up here. Something's going on. So it is torn. This town is torn between two groups. One run by the brothel owner, Saibai Monome.
I own a brothel.
Which is, in this time in like feudal Japan, basically just the inn. That's pretty much the same thing.
It's pretty much an inn.
Yeah. The other one is Ushitora Shinden. This is the apparently he's told this by the shrewd lawman who is kind of just not really doing anything about any of this. So Sanjuro is like, interesting. And he goes and starts to walk towards one side. I believe it's Ushitora's side, and is surrounded by thugs. He turns back without much thought and heads to the local restaurant. Restaurant owner tells him not to make trouble, and he says, well, I'm going to make trouble because there looks like there's going to be money to be made here. So he goes and talks to he talks to Saibai, tells him he's going to want him as a bodyguard, and he can prove it. So he goes to the other side, provokes the thugs on the other side, and cuts them down like they're nothing.
Yep.
It's a great little interaction, just kind of like teases them until they decide, oh, we're going to take this loser guy, this dog, we're going to take him down. And
some funny dialogue as well.
There's no cure for fools, he says to the casket maker. 2 caskets. No, better make it 3.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So Sanjuro joins Saibai, but eavesdrops as he plans to kill him when the job is done. The sheriff announces noon, and a big standoff begins between the two sides. Sanjuro cuts ties publicly with Saibai because of his betrayal, and very loudly announces it to the other side before just leaving to climb a tower and watch. So both sides kind of cowardly advance on each other until an inspector from the government is about to show up, and they play like the town is normal. So I love that scene. Yeah. It's so good. Because they're both like puffing their chests out and being like, we're going to take you down and we're the best. But like anytime either side gets any bit closer, they all like the huge gang on either side just will like back up, and then the other side backs up and comes forward and backs up.
It's literally talking the talk and not walking the walk.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Yeah. And then literally he just goes up and sits on the tower.
He's just watching and having a good time.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this is going to be entertaining.
Yeah, it's so good.
And then also, like, I think it's kind of funny how, it shows that he's kind of outside of any jurisdiction, because these guys, like, they have to worry about, the inspector, but even he's kind of just like, well, I don't really have to worry about, whatever happens to you guys doesn't affect me. Yeah. So, it kind of separates him from them in that sense already.
Yeah. So, now positioning himself to be like the big guy for either side, Sanjuro goes back to the restaurant, and Saibai's wife and Inokichi, the stupid little brother of Ushitora, who, man, they get some good comedy out of him. The first moment when he shows up and talks to the coffin maker, and the coffin maker's like, oh, business is good, got 3 from your side. And he's like, whoa, and he's like, oh, but 4 from the other. And he has to think for like a solid 15 seconds about if 3 or 4 is a larger number. And then he's like, oh, yeah, you're
pretty
right.
good.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
It's a good time.
And he like counts all the numbers on his fingers.
Yes. Oh, it's great. It's the perfect kind of overacting that guy does.
Right.
So yeah, the wife and Inokichi fight over Sanjuro. Ushitora has a man killed to get rid of the inspector and tries to hire Sanjuro, but Sanjuro like drives a hard bargain, so nothing happens yet. The next day, the constable is being suspicious. There's something weird happening. Ushitora, his younger brother, whose full name I can't remember, but they call him Uno, he's returned and suggested peace. Also, he has a gun, a revolver. Whoa. which I was saying was interesting for the specific reason that it kind of places this in a time period more specifically.
Right.
Because up to this point, it's just, samurais and thugs and everything. So this could be any time in feudal Japan to, a non-expert. But now that this guy has a revolver, now we know this is probably in like the 1800s when the United States is pushing for the closed down nature of Japan to stop, and it's much more of a Western expansion and happening and everything, which also gives an interesting perspective just to the story overall, because it makes Sanjuro himself a bit more, I guess, realistic.
Right.
Because if this was like if this was Seven Samurai and he was walking around acting like that, it would be kind of weird, because he's not like the super honorable samurai necessarily, and he's not like following a lord, which would place it even earlier than Seven Samurai.
Yep.
So this puts it further on when it's not necessarily that really lords and emperors system necessarily as much anymore. It's kind of becoming more Western.
Yeah, and they don't use exposition in the form of dialogue to get all those points across. It's all like you're saying,
just the
very
story
visual,
happens.
and every single part of the movie is used to further the story, which is, any good movie is going to have that, but again, you could say this is a masterclass on, whatever, on how to do that, because every shot, there's a lot of detail, there's a whole story being told within each one. The acting is also great. It's a great just combination of all disciplines in a movie, and like, even though it's black and white and shot at a long time ago, I think it holds up
a very
100%.
Long time ago. It was 1961. Can you even how crazy is that?
That's a while though. In the terms of filmmaking, they were still only able to shoot on film back then. There was not no such thing as a digital camera.
That's true fact.
They didn't have any big budget, special effects to cover over lack of story.
That's true.
It was all out there. All their junk was exposed.
Oh, here's a note that
junk was not in the trunk.
A
joke you have?
No, a thought that I had this thought at this point in the movie.
Oh, right.
Of the way that that Sanjuro holds his arms in his kimono, just like as a resting stance.
Yeah. I noticed that the entire time.
Looks
I thought that was
super
dope.
cool and super tough.
Yeah.
Like just the fact that he's like hanging out all the time.
Yeah, it made me wonder if that's like a regular thing,
Well, because Uno kind of did it too.
Right. Because it could be kind of like having your hat backwards. You know what I mean?
Well, then the thing that I immediately thought of is Clint Eastwood's poncho.
Right,
100%. Was that intentional to compare it to that?
Yep.
To give him that kind of like, I don't know, casual, not necessarily casual, but
like it's almost like
it's a visual similarity.
I think again, we were talking about how everything has every element of storytelling is there. I think you can still tell a story with costume, and so it could be like the costume designer saying on both of those projects being like, oh, I see what they did there, so obviously they're going to try and have some sort of personality driven costume item, something that differentiates the main character from everyone else. So
legit, like then because Sanjuro has these super simple Ronin robes, they even have a crest on them, which is interesting to me. It makes me wonder what his history is.
Did you see that the other samurai had the same markings or it looked like the same markings?
Yeah, it was probably something like some other kind of flower.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, but then the other thing is they mentioned the mayor earlier in the movie, and then at the end he comes out, and it's him because he's got like these regal robes and everything. They're talking about him like banging his prayer drum because he just wants all this to end, and he comes out in his fancy robes and he's just like smacking his drum like crazy, and you're like, oh, well, it's the mayor.
Yeah,
it's the mayor.
They also show like him earlier in the movie.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, when the inspector comes to town.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you already have that.
Yeah. Back to the plot. So Sanjuro delivers. What is happening here? Oh yeah, so there's a suggested piece, and Sanjuro is not about that because that's the stop of the battle, which is the stop of his money making. So he overhears the men that Ushitora hired to kill the magistrate in the other town talking all about it. So he captures them and he goes to, he delivers them to Saibai. Right. As a kind of like, you can blackmail them and take these guys to the law, and it'll get rid of them. But then he goes to Ushitora and tells him that one of Saibai's men caught them, and they've now once been pitted against each other. So Uno catches one of Saibai's men and forces a trade. The sheriff announces the time, and it's time for the trade. But it's a trick. and Uno shoots them with his gun.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, man, I got a lot of burps from that lasagna all of a sudden. But Saibai got another hostage, and things are even again. And it's this woman, and we don't know what the deal is with her at the moment. The next day, Saibai and Ushitora themselves make the trade. The trade is of a woman Ushitora won in a gambling game of some sort, whatever kind of game it was. I don't know if they specified.
Or I think he lost. He lost some sort of gambling game, probably blackjack. I don't know, probably not, because that's assuming America.
Well, the husband lost the game,
right? And so it wasn't necessarily for the wife. It was for like some sum of money.
Yeah,
and
he wasn't
able to pay for it. And the guy was talking later in the movie about, he would have just lost his house, but they also took his wife because she was beautiful.
Yep. So Sanjuro is disgusted upon hearing this story about all this. He kind of keeps a cold exterior, but he's like very like visually like he knew that these guys were bad and he wanted to just play them for fools and everything. But now he's like, these guys are evil and they suck.
It's almost like he takes it with a different level of like gravity. He's more serious about it. It's more personal to him now. For
some reason. We don't know why. Maybe he's got something in his past. I don't know. There's a lot of like built-in things about this character.
I wonder if, definitely. I mean, maybe the other movies maybe expand on that more.
Because there's only the one sequel with this specific character. So I don't know. And I mean, maybe it's in the form of like the same thing with The Man with No Name.
Right.
We don't get... And we'll get into more comparison later, but like there's not as much of a character in The Man with No Name as there is in Sanjuro. Like he plays it a lot deeper, Mifune does, than Eastwood does, because The Man with No Name, Joe in this case, in the first one he's called Joe, he is just kind of a clever guy with a heart of gold at times, and he's just cool. But Sanjuro,
I think it speaks to the difference between a samurai and a cowboy, which from an interesting thought that I have with this movie is like, I mean, we probably view samurai in a way different way than they actually were, and you will look at maybe like the actual quantity and think of like, okay, what if a samurai did come to a city? Like you would want him to protect that city because he might actually be that talented or like have a different degree of combat like that, especially in that time period where again there might not be lords or like an organized thing going on. And I think also like one of the things with the cowboys is like, well, in the samurai thing, it's like his time is about to be over, especially with guns coming in and whatnot. So there's kind of some different undertones. But, just knowing a lot more about U.S. history and just all the stuff that goes into that, with The Man with No Name, he's just really, a random guy. It's just a different. It's a time in history where you didn't have to have like roots. There wasn't, you didn't really have an identity. You could kind of just go and live life how you wanted to. And so for him, he doesn't have anyone that he's connected to or any like core beliefs that like, whereas with the samurai, that they have some sort of tenets. They all have something that they're like a consistent viewpoint, Whereas the Man with No Name, he isn't tied to anything. He's literally a rogue. He doesn't have any reason to care for anyone. And if he does, that's again, only out of the kindness of his heart and wouldn't be any tenets, or only due to his personality and decisions.
Interesting. So, since he's disgusted by this gambling thing, that's a good thought. I don't mean to move on so quickly.
Good. Well, I mean, I didn't really have anything else to say.
Yeah. So Sanjuro, disgusted by this whole story, goes to Ushitora and joins him in a play to save the woman. Yeah. He tells Inokichi, when they get to this place, that all the guards have been killed. Go tell Ushitora, and then he goes and kills all the guards. Yeah, which just
absolutely destroys them. The sword play was interesting. I thought. I mean, it was interesting.
It's probably pretty realistic. Yeah. I'm not witness to a lot of samurai battle.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it's a lot of slashing, which is probably accurate. But I thought. It'd be more gruesome.
It's not really a stabbing weapon.
Whoop. Oh, we got our total high quality diffuser sound thing that you're not hearing, and is not a towel over top the microphone. Sorry about that, listeners. Anyways,
I'm just going to push through to the end of this, and then we'll go back and do notes. I'm almost through it. But yeah, he saves the woman and gives all of the money that Ushitora had just paid him to the woman and her family, and tells him to get out of there. Like, how can we thank you? How can we thank you? And says, don't leave. Please, just go. And as soon as they leave,
He also like threatens to like kill them.
Yeah, which is a very samurai move.
Yeah.
It's very funny. I mean, to me,
one thing that annoys me more than
is weaklings groveling.
Yeah.
It's very Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The god comes out of the clouds. They're like, "Oh, holy Lord!" And they're like, "Quit groveling. There's nothing I hate more than a bunch of idiots." And it's this version of God is just so tired of people giving him such praise all the time.
I get it. You wrote so many songs about me.
The freaking Psalms, 1,000 of them. That David guy,
you guys are total kiss ups, dude. Like,
it's ridiculous. Crazy freaking brown nosers down there, King Arthur. But yeah, as soon as they get out of there, all of the cavalry gets there. And they're like, what happened? And Sanjuro, in the meantime, has totally trashed the place to make it look like it was a million guys that went and destroyed them. And he tells Ushitora, like, hey, I should have, I don't know, I turned into John Wayne. Did you hear that?
A little bit, yeah.
I should have gotten more guys to fight him in there. Pilgrim. That's my John Wayne, I guess.
John Wayne.
So he's like, man, well, I guess Saibai must have done this. So in retaliation, they go and burn down the silk shop. So then Saibai goes and drains all of Ushitora's sake, which is very unfortunate. Poor guys. So they're just like retaliating. And the coffin maker is now sad because, according to him, quote, when the fighting gets this bad, they don't bother with coffins. And there's just like bodies in the street and everything's on fire and everything. Like, it's visually gotten much worse.
Right.
Like, it's bad at the beginning, but like you're seeing it like just devolve further and further. So Uno shows up and in the restaurant and seems to know something's up. Figures out that Sanjuro killed those men, but doesn't have any proof until suddenly he finds a thank you note that was just delivered to Sanjuro from the family that he saved. So Sanjuro's captured by Ushitora and is just beaten, and they are trying to figure out where that they went and everything. He obviously doesn't know. He wouldn't have told, probably, even if he did know. But he just gets beat like crazy. And then Sanjuro pretends to escape, allowing him to escape. So they're looking all over the place, trying to find him. And big battle ensues, and people are dying all over the place because they figure, well, he must be going and hiding with Saibai. So they go over there and they're like, this is it. We're going to just like burn the place down and take him down, whatever. And Saibai surrenders eventually after all this bloodshed, and Uno just kills him and his son. And Sanjuro watches from a distance and gets the old man to trick Inokichi into helping him save Sanjuro without him knowing, which is very good.
Oh, genius scene. And then I look at the end where he's like, oh, let me help you. He's like, no, do this. And then like,
weren't you looking for someone? He's like, oh, my brother's going to kill me. Yeah.
And that was all like, it's good that was already established. Yeah. Like, just a funny
He's
thing.
He's an oaf.
Yeah. But like even that same like idea of like the way they responded to that, there's another point in the movie where he responded just like that. Yeah. So, again, like people
are constantly like stroking his ego, being like, well, if I was as big and brave as you, and like that's how he gets him like, well, there's ghosts in this place, and if I only someone as brave as you could face it, there's no one else that can help me.
Right.
And I get there and he's like, well, I don't see any ghosts. It's like, well, they only appear to someone as cowardly as I am.
Right.
That you wouldn't see them at all.
It's like classic.
It's very good. So yeah, Sanjuro hides and rests for a few days in this little old decrepit temple that's not really being used anymore. And the coffin maker shows up and says that the old man has been caught trying to help him. And he brings Sanjuro swords, and Sanjuro returns. This is a great sequence. This whole final thing is so good in both movies. Sanjuro returns to town where the old man is on display. They've strung him up, trying to get him to tell him, well, where'd he go? 9 men, I made sure to count, 9 men advance on Sanjuro, including Uno and the giant guy. And Sanjuro, we've seen him like throw a knife super accurately. He's been practicing for a few days now. He throws a knife at Uno and gets him in the hand so he can't shoot him. And it's very cool. And he goes and kills the rest. And then the kid, the one that's cowering, is the kid from the beginning. I don't know if you caught that.
Yep.
So I thought that was really cool. Or he's like, go and live in like squalor and be a farmer for the rest of your life. Go live in misery or something. He says,
right.
And like being, I can't remember exactly what it is. It's like living in misery is better than being a jerker. I don't know.
Right.
So he's defeated everybody. Uno is still almost dead. He's not dead yet. He asks for his gun back, and Sandro just gives it to him. And Uno's like, I won't shoot you. He hands it to him, and immediately is like starts smiling and starts to point it at him. But then he doesn't have like the will to do. He's not strong enough. He's about to die, and then he dies. And the whole time that like he's trying to point the gun at him, Sandro's just like calmly sitting there looking at him.
Yeah,
and it's like
stress level
badass.
0. Oh yeah,
like,
definitely.
Oh,
I would not be that cool if I was about to get shot.
Then the mayor comes out in shock with his prayer drum as the fighting is finally over, and he's just like frantic that like this has been going on for so long, and it's finally done, and the town is just like completely destroyed, and all this stuff. Both sides are pretty much everyone in the town is dead, except for the coffin maker and probably the geishas and the old man.
Yep.
And like the final lines are so good. Sanjuro turns to the old man and says, "It'll be quiet in this town now." Literally then frees the old man from his bonds, which I thought was a cool visual and symbolic thing, where he like takes out the sword and slices it, the ropes off of him, and then goes, "See you around." And leaves.
Heads out. Baller.
Yojimbo. Okay, right into Fistful of Dollars. Here we go. Let me get a separate note. My first note, this remastered Blu-ray looks fantastic. The last time I watched it, I think, was on a really low res thing, and it was just like, this is trash.
I watched it separately on my own Blu-ray disc.
Yeah, also looked great. Little boy runs to, now we're talking about Fistful of Dollars starring Clint Eastwood as Joe, the man with no name. He's Joe in this one. He's Blondie and Good, Bad, Ugly. He's got another name in the second one. Here we go. Little boy runs to a house to see his mother and is shooed away by bullets and bandits. Joe goes into town where he passes a dead man on a horse riding out of town, just kind of like the dog with the hand. I should say my notes in this one aren't as much play-by-play as they are comparing the same kind of story beats and everything and where it deviates.
Right.
So it's not quite as detailed, but it's all there. Joe is greeted by the bell ringer, who takes on the role of the constable in this one. And tells him that the Rojas and the Baxters are the two factions in this one. The Rojas are... I wrote it down in a minute here. We'll get to it. Joe is set upon by some thugs and, like Sandro, isn't bothered and meets the cantina owner as he goes the other direction instead. Joe goes to the balcony and surveys the town. The Rojas are Ushitora, so they're like the bandit type characters, the worst guys, and the Baxters are Saibai, so they're like the quote unquote law abiding ones, even though they're just as bad.
Right.
Joe's motivation, I noted, is more money as opposed to Sanjuro, where from the start he's kind of more about the morals of it than he is about the money, but it's still the money.
And again, I think that's kind of what I wanted to point out, like with the history and whatnot.
A samurai as opposed to a random guy in the middle of nowhere.
And especially like just it being, I mean, it was set in America or was that Mexico?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It was Mexico.
Okay.
Because it's at the beginning when there's the exchange, it's the American government coming to the Mexican government on the Rio Bravo. So it might be...
Well, and they refer to people coming down from Texas.
I think it might be just south of Texas.
Okay. So that would make sense then.
Yeah.
Well, but being an American or whatever, it's like, money... it's a bigger emphasis in our society, whereas like honor and saving face would be a bigger emphasis in Yojimbo. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it would change on like what would be admirable about those two like figures that are kind of share the same like space respectively. I think within their cultures.
That's why for me, like a lot of things in this one as opposed to Yojimbo, it's wild how many things like translate really well from this completely original script samurai movie to a Western.
Right.
It's very strange how many things translate super well, but there are quite a few things that to me, like story points and stuff, that kind of fell flat because they had to change the motivation and it didn't work as well for that reason.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like the stolen wife and everything, that whole really important inciting incident all of that seems to me to kind of fall flat in comparison to Yojimbo, at least in Fistful of Dollars.
I can't even really pinpoint why, to be honest with you. It just it definitely does, though.
Yeah. Here we go. Let's roll. Joe propositions the Rojas like Sanjuro goes to prove his worth, get 3 coffins ready, goes and shoots 4 guys. My mistake, 4 coffins. Joe meets with Miguel Rojo and joins them. Esteban and Miguel conspire to kill Joe, and he overhears. Joe leaves. But he doesn't leave their gang, he just leaves that group, or that area. He doesn't stay with them. So the military comes through town. Joe follows them out of the town with the canteen owner to see what's up. The U.S. military, I think the Confederates, meet them and start to make an exchange, guns for gold. But it's actually Ramon Rojo, who's been getting talked up a lot. He's the cool, dangerous one, and his men, disguised as the American military. They kill them and take the gold, them being the Mexican army. So Ramon is supposedly attempting peace. We don't know why yet. Joe decides to leave. Ramon is just biding his time with this peace because he knows the government is going to come investigate when they find all of this killing happening on the river. So Joe and the Cantina Man take 2 dead soldiers to the graveyard, and this is to stop the peace, just like in the other one. Joe tells the Baxters and the Rojos about the men as though they are alive and can be witnesses to what happened, and like the men who killed the magistrate in Yojimbo. Joe stays behind while everyone races to the dead men, for one side as damning evidence against them, and for one side as damning evidence against the other side. They both need to get these people to get rid of each other. Joe stays behind while everyone races to get to the dead men who they think are alive. Joe sneaks inside to find out what is in the Rojos' storeroom. The Rojos and the Baxters have a stalemate at the graveyard. The Rojos shoot the men, thinking they've killed them, and they have now been silenced. Haha, we won. Just kidding, they were already dead. You're an idiot. Joe heard someone coming into the storeroom, punches them. Oop, it's the woman, Marisol. The Rojos return with the Baxters' son captured, but Joe takes Marisol to the Baxters, and an exchange is arranged. So they have the whole like emotional exchange, and this is the part that like really was just nothing to me. For one, because the kid in this one is insanely annoying.
Dude, his sound, I don't even know how they got that annoying of a child sound.
It's so bad.
It's just,
and it's partially because it's a spaghetti western and it's all dubbed over, and that's you know the way that it is, but it's so bad. Whereas in Yojimbo, it's like much more a real character, and you're kind of more connected to the child. Like everyone,
I think also the father in Yojimbo seems like more of like a respectable person. Yeah. Whereas like in this one, it's just kind of like he's there.
It's a guy. Like you get to know everyone in Yojimbo a lot more than you do in this one.
Yeah.
The people in Dollars, I think, are much more caricatures. Right. They're very much more one-dimensional, like Western, even like the stereotypes than anything.
Like the store owner had way more motivation in Yojimbo and like more emotion. Yeah. And you felt like his motivation was a bit clearer than...
He's one of the best characters in the movie.
Definitely. Yeah. Whereas in Fistful of Dollars, it's just... Again, he's kind of
He's a guy who's along for the ride the entire time.
Yeah. And he kind of just... The story happens to him and that's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Definitely no decisions.
Yeah. Made. And like, especially in the exchange scene in Yojimbo, I really love watching the restaurant owner, the way that he like interacts with the kid. Like he's clearly got a connection with this family. Right. Like he's someone of some sort of standing in this town.
And it shows that like that they really are the bad guys for doing this. You know what I mean? It gives it more weight. Whereas this one's like, wait a minute, what if this dude is not like the guy isn't a great husband or what? You don't know any of that stuff. Whereas the other one, he's like sleeping outside even though he knows he's gonna get beat. Like that one line where he has where they're like, well, if you go back, they're gonna beat you. You know that, right? And he's like, I don't mind it. Yeah. And just like you're like that shows you so much more.
And Marisol doesn't seem to really resist any of this at all. She's just kind of like an item that gets tossed around as opposed to the wife in Yojimbo, who is clearly not wanting to be involved in any of this.
Right. Yeah, a lot more obvious for sure. Granted, I will say, I mean, she's not like totally. I don't know. Actually, like
they're
at
both
the end,
kind of fairly indoctrinated.
Yeah. As far as like their characters and what they show, I actually kind of did like Marisol a little bit more because like I think
by the end, yes,
yeah, like her performance at the end where when they're doing the exchange and she goes over to the kid and like they have that moment. I think I like that better with Fistful of Dollars than YOJIMBO. Could be also how it was shot. I don't know.
I thought it was kind of weird and dumb how like no one stops it at all. No one even tries. They just kind of watch it happen for like what feels like a very long time. And again, then the husband comes out and that's when there's a problem suddenly.
Right. Yeah.
Like if the kid can hang out, then why is this?
Well, because it's like, I mean, kids and women are kind of on the same level in that society, maybe. I don't know. Granted.
Both very short.
Yeah. It was pretty funny when they put her in the cage, basically. They're like, yo, yeah, get in there. And she's like, oh, all right, bet.
Whatever.
Oh.
So yeah, they do the exchange. The kid's super annoying in this one. I wrote this down specifically. Joe gets the full story about the family and does the same thing that Sanjuro does, kills the guys and sends all the money with the family. Joe's discovered and the Rojos beat him up and try to get him to tell them where they went. He won't talk. He obviously also just doesn't know where they went. Joe escapes the same way that Sanjuro does, and the Rojos take the Cantina man hostage. The coffin maker helps Joe escape in a very similar way. He throws himself in a coffin and they get out of there. The Rojos blow up the Baxter house, thinking that they're hiding at the Baxter house, and there's just a massacre. And like it's pretty intense in YOJIMBO, but it's like gruesome in this one. And it kind of, I wrote that down earlier, and then like it just kind of goes on for a little bit longer than I think it needed to, and it kind of became comical. Right. Like, because it's on fire and they're just like shooting all these guys as they're running out of this burning building and like laughing maniacally. I don't think it's comical. I think it's I thought that was actually like genius in my opinion, because it just showed like, imagine yourself in that situation, how bad of a person you have to be to like find that entertaining. It's more for me. It was like it felt like it was there longer because it was just like, this is bad and messed up, and like it gave you that, like it made you uncomfortable, and I think that's like in a way like a good thing. Oh, 100%. I just think it's kind of silly that like with the length that the shot went on, that scene was happening, no one even took a shot at them really. Right. It's like, are you not even gonna?
Oh well, that part. Yeah.
That's kind of
that one guy had
silly.
His gun out, drawn towards them, and didn't get a shot off.
Like, what is even that about? But yeah, it's like super gruesome and horrifying, and like that's one thing where like the one-note nature of the characters in Fistful of Dollars really comes out in a good way, where it's like these guys are just pure evil. Yep. Where like it's an interesting thing wherein I think YOJIMBO, both sides are a lot more like, it's a lot more ambiguous as to like, are either of these guys better than each other even? Like they're both kind of like, the Saibais are much more like quote unquote law abiding. Right. But they're like, you know, the gangsters who are doing the stuff under the table, and then Ushitora is just not even, he doesn't care that people know that he's a bad dude or anything like that. Right. And then in Fistful of Dollars, the Baxters are almost just like good people as far as it is portrayed. Like, oh, I saw what you just killed all four of them. I'm the sheriff. It's like, yeah, cool. And that really is kind of that guy's defining characteristic. The wife in both movies is really the leader of that side of the town. Oh, definitely. Which I thought was interesting from a standpoint of it's the 1960s and this woman is the empowered one. Right. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the unseen side of like, you know, you look back and you're like, oh, well, everyone was like that. But I think at the same time, some of the things that are set up in family and just in general and culture and stuff, like the women does make a lot of decisions, and also like you look back at what that kind of time was. Well,
just the way that you said that was, you said women does make a lot of decisions.
Oh, I meant to say the woman in the household.
I was trying to just let you talk, but it was too funny. Go ahead. Sorry. Women does make a lot of decisions.
Do laundromats make money?
Does Bruno Mars is gay?
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. But what I'm saying is like, you know, you look at the actual like percentage of household items that the wife would be responsible for, and or for buying in a okay, I can't even put a freaking sentence together today.
I understand what you mean.
But yeah, there's a very significant part that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, it's the frontier, and in a lot of like the more romanticized westerns, they just kind of become like the damsel as opposed to reality when it was much more like everyone has a role and everyone's important in this.
Yeah, I think like maybe more so than anything, it's like Oh goodness, I totally had something great. I can't. Well, I don't know what's going on.
You're
now.
great, man.
Yeah,
hey, man, you're great.
Hey, wait, what is it?
You're beautiful.
Keanu Reeves.
You're breathtaking.
You're breathtaking.
It's like to the breathtaking vistas of Night City. You're breathtaking. No, you're breathtaking. The way he stands, like no, it's you.
It was a little cringy.
Keanu is that way a little bit, but he's just Reeves. He's very lovable.
Yeah, it's like when your dad learns a TikTok dance.
Oh man, my dad is all about TikTok dances.
Yeah, same, savage. Moving on. Next
thinking
plot
about
point.
Your dad doing TikTok dances makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, so they've strung up the Cantina Man, and so yeah, back up. The Baxters are all killed.
Right.
They're all dead. Joe hides and recovers in a mine shaft and kind of discovers that he's just shooting for fun, basically, and realizes that there's some, like, metal stuff in there that's really strong. Interesting. Which is also a fun callback to earlier when he brings up the suit of armor that is in the Rojo estate that Ramon, or I guess somebody, I think it's Ramon, shot at and, like, made the shape of a heart on.
Right, yeah. So that's a great. I think that
it's a really clever callback.
We'll talk about at the end.
Yeah,
which I was gonna talk about this anyways. So
yeah,
keep this in mind.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
So he's just like, this metal is interesting, and he's doing something with it. You don't know quite what yet. So then the Cantina Man has been captured. The coffin maker comes and tells him, and we got our final
Taco Bell hat.
I found it on the road on the other side of the street with some nacho cheese on it, and took it home and cleaned it off.
I wondered if you got it today. Anyways, sorry for that. But for those of you who are listening to the audio version of this podcast, which would be everyone.
Did you take a picture of me and my arm yet?
Not yet, but we'll put your Taco Bell hat on too.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, we get our big YOJIMBO standoff moment, and Joe goads Ramon into shooting him in the heart, and he keeps shooting him and shooting him and shooting him, and he just gets back up again, which the first time he does it, and the first time you watch this, and the first time he does it, you're like,
holy crap,
what the heck?
What's going on?
Because there's even a line earlier where Ramon says something to him to the effect of, a man with a rifle, old Mexican proverb, a man with a rifle will always beat a man with a pistol.
Unless unless they're closer together, basically.
Yeah, something.
Because you'll never get the chance to even shoot with a pistol when a rifle could take you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also, though, I mean, the fact that, like, he called his bluff with the heart thing, I think was such a cool. That was something that they added to this one that wasn't, I don't think, beat for beat from YOJIMBO.
Oh yeah,
and I think that was my favorite part of the movie, like just that foreshadowing, and then like him calling and manipulating and messing with him, and like it's almost like if he were to shoot him at a different like body part, like he would be like giving up some, like it would be like he was still losing, you know what I mean?
Well, so he would be dead.
But yeah, no, what I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, so it's in your mind, you're like, obviously you could just shoot him in the head or whatever, but he also takes it and makes it like his, like he uses his pride against him in that, and being like, oh, you're losing your touch, like, like you can't shoot me in the heart.
Yeah.
Oh,
shoot
I thought you
the heart.
Yeah,
go for the heart.
Yeah, so he like
insert Willem Dafoe Spider-Man.
The cunning warrior attacks neither body nor mind.
Tell me how.
The heart, Osborn. First, we attack his heart.
Yeah, he just like,
attack his heart.
He just he eggs him on, and I think that's a little bit genius.
Yeah,
I don't know, I like that.
But the reason that he does that is because he has taken and shaved that metal that he had in the mine shaft, and he's wearing it like a bulletproof vest, and it's underneath his poncho. So he gets like super close, and then
he whips off the poncho.
And if it was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, there would have been a right at that moment, because it's this big reveal, and you get your spaghetti western zoom and everything like that. It's very good. But then he takes it off. He's close enough and everything. And Joe goads Ramon to shoot him in the heart.
The heart, Osborn.
Until he's nearly out of bullets. And then reveals the metal plate. Gun on the ground, pure skill. Joe is faster. And like he takes all the other guys out that are surrounding him.
Which is a great shot.
Yeah, and then shoots Ramon in the hand. So then it's just him and Ramon. And then they throw their guns on the ground. It's like whoever is fastest, whoever can load their gun faster.
Yep.
And they go and he's faster, he takes him down.
Right.
And it's very good.
Such a good scene.
Yep. And then the bells start ringing. The bell ringer starts ringing, which is, reminiscent of the mayor and his drum. And then Joe goes over to the guy, unties him and all that. Well, so long.
Yep. I'm out of here.
It's very good. So, those are those two things. That specific, the differences between the standoff at the end. Let me put my phone down, so I don't need it anymore. The differences between the standoff at the end is interesting in that they just had to kind of get around the fact that the other one is built around swords and the other one is built around, weapons that can shoot at long range.
Right.
So how do you approach that? How does Clint Eastwood get close? How do you figure that out? And that's where that, the thing with the metal plate and the heart is really genius.
Right.
Because that, is what allows him to bridge that gap. And it works really, really well.
Yep.
As opposed to Yojimbo with the knife throw, which is just very cool.
Yeah.
It's not as much of, an emotional beat as it is in Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, it's a lot faster.
But it's very cool.
It just happens, and then you're almost oh, okay, oh, wow, what?
Yeah. The whole conflict in general at the end is a lot more drawn out in Fistful of Dollars, as opposed to, where he fights Uno, and they do get that kind of, final conflict, that final, confrontation with him on the ground and everything. But I feel like I like the fight and everything better in Yojimbo, but I think the emotional beat works better, weirdly, in Fistful of Dollars, a movie that up to this point hasn't had as much depth as Yojimbo.
Right.
But the end kind of
I would say that
better.
Just personally, I don't even know if this is the quote unquote correct answer, but I liked Fistful of Dollars finale a little bit better.
Okay.
Saying that to say though, I probably overall liked Yojimbo better, and especially since it came first and it was original and whatnot. But yeah, in that instance, I did like Fistful there.
Yeah. What do you think of the scores in the various movies?
Personally, again, this is weird. I thought I'd like more stuff about Yojimbo.
Do what you want.
I did prefer. And again, this is prefer, not the other one is bad. It's just if I had
our
to choose.
fan base are not Kurosawa diehards that are going to come and attack you. Just say what you want to say.
That's a good point. Reddit might come get me. All of our Reddit, from our subreddit.
Yeah, our subreddit.
Our PewDiePie submissions.
Yeah. Our email, the great Scubdo. No.
Yes.
bmpod@gmail.com.
Oh my goodness, I totally love what's going on. I can't even keep a train of thought today.
The music.
Yes. Sorry. I liked Fistful of Dollars a little bit better. I feel like it had a bit more character to it, and it was a bit more of a storytelling element.
It's hard to beat Ennio Morricone.
Yeah, and I think also, it could be a different style of movie in Yojimbo where the music isn't necessarily as much of a part of it, and maybe even in Japanese filmmaking, it might be a different, you might score a movie a bit differently,
I can't quite speak to that. I've only ever seen one other Kurosawa movie, and that's Seven Samurai.
Right.
I don't remember if it's the same composer or not. I think it might be.
Right. Yeah, and again, it wasn't bad by any means. It's just I preferred the Fistful of Dollars soundtrack.
Yeah. Right now in my head, I cannot sing to you Yojimbo.
Yeah, no.
But I could sing Seven Samurai.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna watch Seven Samurai after this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of samurai movie. There's a lot of samurai movie.
There are a lot of samurai movie.
We could watch Sanjuro. Sanjuro is the sequel to Yojimbo.
I kind of want to watch the Seven Samurai one.
Originally, it's very long.
Oh, really? How long?
It's 3 hours.
Wow, that's a lot of time.
It's good though.
Yep.
See, that's the thing is I love samurai movies. I'm a huge samurai and feudal Japan junkie in the first place. I have a cool copy of the Bushido Code and all that we had on display because we're nerds, or losers, I guess, rather.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge fan of this stuff in general. It's just it takes a lot of time and effort to sit down and watch something with subtitles, which is frustrating because there's so many great movies from other countries.
I didn't mind
Parasite.
It, to be honest.
See, that's the thing. I watch it, and it's not a thing that bothers me. It's just I'm used to watching a movie and checking my phone every once in a while and stuff like that.
Right.
But you can't really do that, or else you're going to miss something.
Yeah.
So back to the music, though. For me, I I think if I had to choose one to listen to all the time, if I had to listen to it all the time, I would probably choose YOJIMBO, honestly. But if I had to choose one that I thought was more iconic and probably maybe more musically interesting, I would easily choose Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
And, then I think this was Ennio Morricone's first collaboration with Sergio Leone. And then over their careers, he just got better and better.
Right.
He finally won an Oscar for, I think, The Hateful Eight. He did the score.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which it might have been posthumously. I think he might have died beforehand, or he couldn't make it and died a little bit later.
Oof.
But yeah, I mean, his work in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is incredible. I really like the score too, For a Few Dollars More. Yeah. I think it might be the best one. That might be my favorite movie in the trilogy. People don't really talk about it. But I really like For a Few Dollars More.
I've been having tics.
Which I do
There's
have.
been like tics I've had all over me the past few days.
Ooh.
So now whenever I feel like a little tingle on my wrist, I'm like, what the...
Gross.
Sorry for the randomness. I had a little tingle on my wrist.
There are, towards the earlier parts of Fistful of Dollars, I thought it was interesting that there was like these little musical motifs that kind of sounded like they were trying to emulate Oriental, like traditional music.
Right.
Like when the guy goes by with the Adios Amigos sign on his back, it goes into da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na with like violins and stuff.
Yep.
Which could be interpreted as like Western cowboy stuff. But for me, it like weirdly felt kind of like Japanese, which is weird since this was like a direct ripoff with no credit given.
Right.
And like... It's a strange thing that there would be a nod in that way, so I don't know if that was intentional or not.
Yeah, probably.
But then for YOJIMBO, I feel like as a movie overall, it embraced kind of the comedy of it a lot more.
Yep.
But then the score really leaned into it as well. Like the funny moments had a much funnier score, and Ennio Morricone doesn't really do that.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But
there weren't as many funny beats in,
Yeah, like there were multiple times in YOJIMBO that I like laughed out loud. I would go like, nice.
I exhaled through my nose a few times.
Yeah. Like there was just, man, there were some things that it wasn't like crazy laughter like the video that we found from that guy or anything, which is incredible. And we can talk about that on next week's Apartment News. Maybe. We should have talked about that. I don't think we have time for it now, but I was surprised. I didn't expect it to be funny.
Yeah,
but
same here.
There was like jokes. I was like,
it was good. I enjoyed it,
great.
and it was not like unironically funny too. It wasn't like aged humor or anything. It was just like, all right, that's just funny. Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
Which it's Akira Kurosawa, who is now one of the most prolific all-time iconic directors ever of cinema. Which is it's like the first time I watched Seven Samurai, I was like surprised it was so good, but I was like, well, why should I be like?
Right.
This is like. Arguably the most famous director who ever lived.
That makes sense.
So, of course, it's good.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know. What do you? So I guess I don't know. Do you have any other?
YOJIMBO, yes or no?
That's what I was gonna say. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Fistful of Dollars, yes or no?
Definitely yes as well. I mean, they're both good.
If you had to choose, it's the ultimate question. If you had to choose, not which one is better,
right?
But which one
that I would watch.
If we were going to go watch one again right now.
Okay, right now, it would definitely be YOJIMBO, but
me too.
Only because I've seen Fistful of Dollars more times already.
Fistful of Dollars feels longer to me.
Really? I thought it felt super short.
That was the weird thing too, is that like it was a strange thing where it I feel like it felt like it happened faster, but it didn't feel like as much was happening.
Yeah, I think it's because of the level of like visual storytelling. So you were always like on the edge of your seat.
I was a lot more interested and excited with YOJIMBO.
Yeah. Yeah, you were looking for what was going to happen next, but there were some like weird beats, I think, kind of like that one you were talking about where that shot's just a little bit long, kind of at the end,
There's certain things where they're trying to adapt parts of it that just like don't work as well, where like with the two dead soldiers.
It's just like when you see that it could have been what it could have been, you're like, oh, that obviously is not up to par.
Like honestly, up to this point, I could not have probably described overall the plot synopsis of Fistful of Dollars to you, and I've seen it multiple times.
Right, 100%.
But after watching YOJIMBO, I have a super clear understanding of that story.
Yep.
So I think YOJIMBO overall is just a better movie and tells that story a lot clearer.
Yeah. Yeah, and Yojimbo's great. You don't really never know what's coming next. You're kind of along for the ride. Yeah, even if you kind of know what the story is.
Could be a dog with a hand. You never know what could happen next.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Well,
apparently they had a lot of different things that they considered for like. Kurosawa told like his team like come up with something to be unsettling to show this is a dangerous town.
Right.
And he didn't like any of them, so he just came up with the dog hand thing.
I like
himself.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We both said yes to both things, and we both, if we're going to watch one right now, I think that I would, if I had to say, if I'm, gun to my head, Uno's gun to my head, I would choose Yojimbo as the better film overall.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
This is, I
From
feel
an objective
like,
perspective.
Leone stretching his muscles before he gets to his, better movies in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Once Upon a Time in the West.
Definitely. Yep.
You should watch that one too. It's very good.
Oh, heck yeah. Let's do it.
So, IMDb trivia. I've got a few facts for both movies.
Okay, cool.
Are you ready?
I am absolutely
ready.
One
of these facts is for both movies.
Okay.
Here we go. Yojimbo first. Akira Kurosawa told Toshiro Mifune, the star of the movie, who's also, he's like, the Leonardo DiCaprio to Kurosawa's Scorsese. Like he's his guy.
Very
he's in all this stuff.
Yeah.
He's in Seven Samurai. He's in Sanjuro, the sequel to this. He's in High and Low. He's in Throne of Blood. He's in like so many of his movies. Toshiro Mifune, who actually, hey, here's an extra bonus piece of things.
Bonus piece of things.
Just about Mifune. Star Wars in general, George Lucas was hugely inspired by Kurosawa movies and samurai movies in general, specifically Kurosawa stuff. And the Jedi originally were supposed to be very much like samurai.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's like the way that they fought was like kendo and everything like that in the original trilogy. And it got more advanced as it went on, even in the originals.
Only interested about money.
Yeah.
Or in money.
Exactly.
My grammar is just off today.
Specifically, George Lucas wanted Toshiro Mifune to play old Ben Kenobi, but he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to come out of retirement, or he didn't want to. I think he was still doing movies, but he just didn't want to come to America to do a movie. Which I think they actually did it in London, but he just didn't want to travel out of Japan. He didn't want to travel for this movie that everyone thought was going to fail, basically.
Makes sense.
But one of my favorite artists, Paulo Rivera, has done a painting of Mifune as Obi-Wan, and it's so cool.
Oh, I got to check that out later.
It's like basically gray hair Yojimbo.
Right.
And it's very good.
That's dope.
I used to think his name was Yojimbo. It's not. And actually, did I write that down? I did not. Here's another piece of trivia about Yojimbo. Yojimbo means the bodyguard.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay, so Akira Kurosawa. It makes it sound,
Jimbo.
Jimbo.
It just makes me. I hate
Jimmy
that
Neutron.
It's called Yojimbo, to be honest, because I just can never take the name seriously.
Just call it The Bodyguard.
Jimbo.
But then you think of the Whitney Houston movie, The Bodyguard.
I don't actually, because I've never seen. That song was written for that movie. Kevin Costner. I'm going to read this actual fact now. Okay.
Akira Kurosawa told Toshiro Mifune, star of the movie, that his character was like a wolf or a dog, and told Tatsuya Nakadai, who I think that's the guy who played Uno.
Right.
That his character was like a snake. Inspired by his direction, Mifune came up with Sanjuro's trademark shoulder twitch, similar to the way a dog or wolf tries to get off fleas.
Yeah.
I love that tick.
Yep.
It's so good.
Very cool, yeah.
It's just the smallest thing, but it just is like...
You don't realize it until it's pointed out, but then you're like, oh, yeah, of course that was there.
It's just this weird little thing that just makes him seem so tough.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But also gives you like, it makes him seem a bit more human, and like you're connected to him, and like, you have
and then for Uno,
ground.
the fact that he's supposed to be like a snake, that was Kurosawa's point of view.
Right.
I can totally see that come across in the movie too.
100%.
Because he's this like slick, clean, but slimy, gross guy.
Yep.
And it's very good. There's even a line alluding to that kind of, where they talk about like he's a handsome young man, but he's the devil inside.
Yeah,
like something like that.
Yep.
The massive amount of dust seen blown around which is a staple of these old samurai movies, was actually imported by the truckload from an abandoned firing range.
I wondered about that.
When the wind machine started, it was nearly impossible for the actors to keep their eyes open because they were being engulfed in dust. When Tatsuya Nakadai, was shooting his death scene over the course of 3 days. The combination of the fake blood and the blowing dust made him break out in hives that lasted for weeks after filming.
Wow. Dedication to your craft.
Yeah.
Jeez.
There is in Ghost of Tsushima,
right.
which we should hook the PS4 up after this and see if I can use a controller, because I missed that game so much after watching these movies.
Or just let me play it
and watch you do some stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd be excited about that. There is a mode in Ghost of Tsushima called Kurosawa mode.
Right.
You start up the game and you get to choose your experience, and you can turn on Kurosawa mode, which is Japanese voice lines.
Oh,
and
really?
For one, it's got Japanese voice lines. Weirdly, at the E3 footage, they talked about the Japanese voice track, and it looked like the vocal animations all matched up to it, but
that's pretty cool.
Now the game comes out and it's just like, it's weird. It's the ultimate sin. It's subs and dubs.
Oof.
Because it's like the English animations, but it's Japanese.
That's unfortunate.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that you can turn on the rest of Akira Kurosawa mode at any time, which basically means that it puts a filter over the audio to make it sound like an old Japanese movie, and it increases the wind and weather intensity in the entire game, and puts a cool high contrast black and white filter with grain over the entire thing. That is amazing.
I got to see that.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And I turn it on and off every once in a while, which it looks beautiful, but then the game itself is just so gorgeous that it's hard to keep it on for too long.
Yep.
I also didn't have my headset, so I didn't feel like I was getting the full experience with the sound and everything, because it does get a little bit more muffled. You don't get as much of a full range of audio.
Right.
Because it's trying to emulate the movies as much as possible.
Yep.
It's interesting. Even the camera work in the game, just when you're playing, tries to like really emulate it. It
makes sense.
A real love letter to those movies. Okay, now the ones for dollars. When Clint Eastwood arrived on the set, which we see, in Italy.
Right.
When Clint Eastwood arrived on the set, he was struck by how little the Italian crew and writers knew about the American West they were filming about. For example, he had to point out that coonskin caps were worn by frontiersmen and trappers in the Davy Crockett era, circa the 1820s, not gunfighters and townsmen in the American West and Mexico in the 1870s, as the script writers had written.
See, this is why I feel like we should all just be a little bit more chilled out when someone makes a mistake about like a little cultural thing like this, because I feel like everyone... Like, this just goes to show everyone makes the same mistakes, and no one's doing it with any, harm in mind.
But
it's
get
also
somebody who knows about it to be a consultant, and then you can fix all those things easily.
Right. Yeah, but like
everyone makes mistakes, but but also important things shouldn't be mistaken.
Okay,
if possible.
We're taking two different things here. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Also, I was going to point out that that's what I was like referring to a little bit with like, maybe I don't get everything that's going on with the YOJIMBO movie, because like maybe I don't know some of like the tropes and like the traditional things around it, like being a samurai,
Yeah.
Whereas like the cowboy,
that's something that I thought about with like, I've delved into this kind of stuff a lot. Like, and it's interesting with Lone Wolf and Cub. There's a lot of the manga, which has also been made into 7 movies that inspired Kill Bill.
Oh, nice.
True fact. They're really fun. They're like, that's the 1970s era of samurai movies, and it's like exaggerated and awesome.
Love that.
Really interesting visual stuff in those movies. But there's like so many words that just don't translate. So there's a dictionary in the back of all of these like different things and cultural things, and like to explain it and give these more context. And it's really interesting reading a whole like translated manga from like front to back. That's like from a long time ago, because these movies came out in the 70s.
Right.
It's like, this is a really old comic book.
That's dope.
Which is wild to think about. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
You should actually check it out. It's really cool. I have to finish it first, though. It's a problem. They keep they're really hard to get a hold of, these little omnibuses. So every time they become available, Tim, who manages Rainbow Comics, will order it for me. So I've just got slowly a stack of these things building in my box.
Love that.
As they become available somewhere.
That's great.
Sergio Leone warmed to Clint Eastwood very quickly and joked that he had only 2 expressions, with hat or without hat. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
It is a bit true. Yeah.
Oh, man. Try with hat this time. Oh, boy. I did like that he was without hat at the final confrontation.
Right.
Clint Eastwood recalled, "I've never been to Italy. I've never been to Spain. I've never been to Germany. I've never been to any of the countries co-producing this film. The worst I can come out of this is a nice little trip. I'll go over there and learn some stuff. I'll see how other people make films in other countries." That's really cool because this is the early days for Clint Eastwood. This was like his first starring role. He was in TV westerns before this.
Yep.
And it really shows that he's interested in the directing and all of the different filmmaking process, which he then goes on to be a fantastic director and filmmaker overall. Absolutely. He's done some amazing work and some very okay stuff and some but he's one of my favorite directors, which is a weird thing to think about going all the way back to this.
Right, definitely.
So I like that fact. That's why I put that in there. Okay. Here's the big, interesting comparison fact.
Okay.
Okay, so A Fistful of Dollars is a remake of YOJIMBO, which itself was based on the as-of-yet unadapted 1929 novel Red Harvest by Dashiell Hammett, who wrote The Maltese Falcon.
That is pretty insane right there.
Yes, it is. In fact, this movie's U.S. release was delayed when YOJIMBO screenwriters Akira Kurosawa and Ryuzo Kikushima sued the filmmakers for breach of copyright. Rightfully so. They didn't give any kind of, deference to it at all. It was just, this is my movie. There's all kinds of marketing for this movie. It's like, this is the first movie of its kind, and it's not going to be the last. They've never seen a movie like, there's never been a Western. There's never been something like this before. And it's like literally a rip-off of this movie that came out 3 years ago.
And a camera.
It's like, this same movie came out 3 years ago, and it was better. This is not the first one. They sued the filmmakers for breach of copyright. Kurosawa and Kikushima won, and as a result received 15% of this movie's worldwide gross and exclusive distribution rights for Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea. Kurosawa has said that he made more money off of this movie than he did on YOJIMBO.
That's insane. That's hilarious. I love that.
So that's the big thing there.
But yeah.
So then the interesting thing with that is that The Magnificent Seven, which has been remade again as The Magnificent Seven with Chris Pratt, and it was an okay movie.
Yeah.
The classic Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen from the 60s as well is a remake of Seven Samurai, a previous Kurosawa movie.
Right.
And which kind of originated this idea of the village in danger hires people to help and fend off the attackers, which is a trope that's been done a million times now. Mandalorian did it. Which, hey, again, Mandalorian inspired by Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah, I want to watch that episode again.
But that is the reason that Magnificent Seven specifically has in the credits that it's like a remake or inspired by Seven Samurai because legal battle and everything like that.
Right.
The funny thing then is that what I wrote down the quote.
Right.
Akira Kurosawa specifically sent a letter to to the one.
Yeah.
Leone.
Right.
And this is the opening line of the letter. I love that he's Signore Leone. He actually did the Italian one.
Right.
I've just had the chance to see your film. It is a fine film, but it is my film.
Yeah, that's
Which is, I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Because he wasn't like the all-time greatest guy at that time. He was getting some imagine Christopher Nolan making The Prestige. Like this is his third, fourth movie.
Yep.
It's like he's getting quite a bit of buzz, but it's not like he's the hugest guy of all time.
Right.
So he's getting all this buzz. People are talking about him. So Leone gets this letter and he's going around touting it to everyone that he got a letter from Akira Kurosawa, even though it's like a cease and desist.
That's pretty amazing.
So that's what I have to say about that. That is IMDb trivia.
Heck yeah.
So, Ben, we got one more segment in the show. It's what have you been looking at?
You are very musical today.
Yeah. Well, I have to do that every episode. That's what I do for this part.
Oh, okay. What have I been looking at recently? I mean, I don't, not too much.
I have an extensive list.
Oh, wow. Go ahead then.
So because I broke my body, I was kind of laid up for a while because the first few days, like I'm pretty much in no pain now.
Right.
Like every once in a while it'll spike, but like 90% of the time I'm totally fine. The first few days or the first week or so was just like constant aching. I was on painkillers all the time. So I spent like all of my time watching movies and TV.
Right.
So I went through a lot of things. I started out by watching a few like DC animated things. I watched a lot of Batman the Animated Series. I rewatched a ton of Batman the Animated Series. I watched, courtesy of Tim, almost every single DC animated movie in their current continuity, which is like 15 animated movies.
Yeah.
And they vary wildly in quality.
Right.
Some of them are really, really cool and really good.
Yeah.
Some of them are so bad.
It's
intense. There's actually, in the other room, Batman Ninja, which is the anime Batman one.
Wow.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, that
the trailer makes it look really, really cool. It looks awesome. But then I started
the
watching
title is
it.
Batman Ninja.
Yeah. Titles can be bad though.
Yeah. But like
Ford versus Ferrari is a terrible title for a movie.
It's a great point.
The original title was whatever year that race took place was Le Mans that year,
right.
Which makes a lot more sense because that's what it's about. But, you know, I don't know. It's fine. I could point out a lot of horrible titles. A Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Not a great title. For a few dollars more. Not a great title.
It's a clever title, but yeah, it's because the first one was stupid.
But it's also not connected to it at all. Except that it's maybe the same character.
Right.
So yeah, I watched like a crap load of those movies. I watched like the first 4 seasons of Regular Show over again because it's all on HBO Max. There's like 9 seasons of Regular Show. So I'm super excited to actually go back and watch all of these things that I never saw of one of my favorite shows of all time. It's great.
I never have seen it.
I watched all of Doom Patrol up until the current day that it's coming out. I watched in one day An American Werewolf in London, a great movie.
Right.
Again, not a great title, but also a title that I kind of love.
Yeah.
It's so perfectly ridiculous. And so is the movie. Right after that, I went to The Exorcist.
Nice.
None of these had I seen before.
Right.
The Exorcist, let me tell you, wild ending. Did not expect it to go the way it did at all.
Yeah.
It was insane.
I've not seen it either.
Can I tell you?
I mean, I kind of want to watch it.
Okay, then I won't tell you. Because it's just, if you're going to watch it,
I'll watch it
then
at some
you need
point
to
for
see
sure.
it. It's on HBO Max.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
Apparently, Exorcist 3?
Yeah.
Really underrated. Surprising.
Okay.
Surprising. You would think that horror franchises are the worst because they make
really
a good
are.
one and then they just make 1,000 more that are all the same and they're all terrible.
Yeah.
So you don't expect the third Exorcist movie to be surprisingly great.
That's a good point.
Apparently
I wouldn't have thought that.
There are 5 movies in the Exorcist series.
Oh, boy.
And 2 of them are technically the same movie.
That's gross.
Yeah. So are a lot of scenes in The Exorcist. Legit, the thing that freaked me out the most in that movie is just the scene in the hospital where they were doing regular hospital stuff. Like they had, because they were examining the girl's brain who's possessed and everything.
Oh, I hate
and
that kind of stuff.
they were doing, they had to put an IV or something in her neck. And it was like realistic, like little blood spurts and everything. And it's the tiniest amount of blood spurting, but it's coming out of the neck and it's coming out of this tube.
I will say this. I'm not the most squeamish person. I'm not the toughest person. But I could never, like, unless it was like a life or death situation, I couldn't give somebody a shot. Like put like that needle and like force it
shoot him
through
with
their
a gun.
skin. I could do that because I think it'd be easier to shoot somebody with a gun than to stab them.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
You get that separation.
Yeah, and it's also just like tick, it's like a one you do one thing. And with a sword, it's a full body of motion, and like you have to give it your all to actually like make it happen. Whereas with a gun, you could be like, I don't know, bang, you know.
After that, I watched Prisoners, which is directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is one of the greatest.
Like out of your window or what?
Nope.
Where'd you see him?
He's one of the greatest directors of all time.
Right.
He is insanely good. Everything he's done has been fantastic. He did 1 or 2 that I thought were just okay, but he's amazing. He did Blade Runner 2049. This movie is Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman and Terrence Howard, who plays Rhodey in the first Iron Man movie before he's recast.
Yep.
And
bring back the real Rhodey, not my Rhodey.
So intense.
Yeah.
It is incredibly good. I think you would really, really like this movie.
I'll take a look.
It's also on HBO Max.
all the HBO Max goodness.
Yeah, that's basically what all
HBO
of
Max
this is.
sponsor us.
Actually, all of these are HBO Max.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what I've been watching. And that's our show.
That pretty much is our show.
Yep.
Yes.
If you enjoyed the episode, cool. Thanks. Tell us about
this has been the longest show that we've had ever.
Is it like an hour and a half now?
1 hour, 31 minutes, and actually, exactly 1 hour and 32 minutes.
Ooh, get ready for the Lord of the Rings episode.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I'm going to do like orchestration for it and everything.
That would be amazing.
It's going to be
great.
love
that. I will have more energy on that one, too.
Yeah. If you like the show, we'd love to hear from you about it. You can find us on the internet. We have Ben and Marshall do a podcast on Instagram, as well as The Great Scub do on Twitch and YouTube. We don't do as much streaming these days because I can't hit the WASD keys.
That's true.
So that's unfortunate. Maybe Ben will stream on the channel with the boys. Who knows?
Maybe I will. We'll find out.
But we put stuff there every once in a while. I've been wanting to get back to that, and then I broke my arm apart. So it might be a bit. You can also email us at benandmarshallpod@gmail.com. And I'm at mparish_art on Instagram. Ben?
I'm Ben with the lens. It's kind of spelled weird, but if you search that, I'll show up.
Yeah, and you can also look at who we follow on the Ben and Marshall Do podcast page on Instagram.
I guess I should clarify my username isn't specifically Ben with the lens. That's another guy. I DM'd him to see if I could buy his username.
Really?
And now we're really good friends, but he didn't want to sell it.
What a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, but now he asks me all the camera questions, so I give him as much advice as I can.
Oh, that's
if you want camera advice,
nice.
Feel free to DM me. Also, but if you're going to ask me what camera you should get, just feel free not to, because the internet is better, and it's going to be way better than asking me, and everyone asks me that, and Google is a thing, and you could Google it. Okay, anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So that's our socials. If you want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you, hear what you thought of the show. And, if you can share it, that would be hugely helpful. Word of mouth is the best form of marketing. So if you like the show, tell your friends about it.
Hey, if you got a finger on your hand, well, share this with your 3 best friends who also have fingers on their hands.
Do it. It's a great time. And if you're listening on iTunes, give us a rating.
No, definitely do that. We should start reading. If someone leaves a review,
we will read it
live on 100%. The podcast
Yeah.
as the cold open.
Mm-hmm. That's a true fact. So, thanks for listening to the show. I've been
over.
Marshall.
We're done. I'm Ben.
We have to. That was terrible.
It really was.
Okay. We're gonna take a moment.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna do another run on that.
Okay,
I'm gonna cut this out.
or we could leave this part in.
Or we could leave this in.
Right.
We'll see. Okay. Well, thanks for listening to the show. I've been Marshall.
And I've been.
Nice.
The show is over. It is done. I have had a little bit of fun.
Yeah. My name is...
No, it's over.
Okay.